And that this is all the people that signed up first for lower prices. And so the very lack of equitable and appropriate compensation for CCS for stakeholders, we haven't had that conversation yet. And for anyone who is in the room that wants to have those conversations, we are kicking off an informal coalition. We're starting to formalize it a little bit more to dig into exactly some of these stakeholder issues, because the scale of what we're trying to do is unprecedented. What we're trying to do is unprecedented. We've got a policy to provide incentives that is meant to help cover the CapEx and the OpEx for the projects. We have not yet had that right conversation around what are the rest of the policies that are necessary for our communities to embrace our projects and embrace them as well. Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Thank you for amazing discussions here. So, as a summary, when we look at everything, it seems obviously that the investment needed and the timelines to realize CCS, the financial barriers seem to be the biggest piece. So, while we try to fight for policy to fund these projects and enable more people to invest in it, is there any policy or work or foundation going on to reduce the timeline of the projects, reduce the investment before the first revenue can be realized? Anything like that happening that everybody could learn from?
Well, I would say that's a big part of the Department of Energy and a lot of their funding, right? And so, we at Carbon America are very grateful to be the stewards of the Department of Energy funding. And that's why the DOE is providing all of these grants for these projects, because they are complicated. They take a long time from first starting a project to getting something in operations. I mean, maybe you're looking at 7 years, And so I think that's exactly why the Department of Energy and various other state programs are evolving in order to kind of de-risk and facilitate some of those earlier steps.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a plug for the regional partnerships. So the DOE started regional partnerships 15 years ago, and the ones that still remain are incredibly, like the depth of information they have on the reservoirs in which they're stewarding, on the emitters in their areas, and then the technological breakthroughs needed to really start to commercialize in their regions. They're just a great source of information and ways to accelerate those types of learnings as well. So, and that's a DOE-funded initiative as well that at this point is stood up on its own.
But I would say, like I said earlier, not to rain on who's great, but those regional partnerships did include our tribes. And so, like I said, that's neither here nor there, but like I said, she's right, there's a wealth of information on reservoirs and geology and emissions and the like, but when it comes to Indian countries, it's like a blank, there's no information. And so, but we're trying to catch up. So, like I said, we feel like this is an opportunity, not to complain, but to make that point, and to step in there and do the hard work that needs to be done, because we feel that there is an opportunity for not so much on the capture side, because there's really not a lot of emission sources in the country, but on the transportation side and on the sequestration side, we feel like we're developing a business model that we feel makes sense, so that tribal communities can benefit from creating companies and industry around transporting and sequestering CO2. We feel like that's an opportunity for us. And very, everybody's mentioned 45Q. Well, according to the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, that's a 12-year period. It could be increased, but for now it's 12 years. So I'm thinking about year 13. What's that economics of these projects in the year 13 when there's no tax credit? And so, but I'm very optimistic that we will have a business model that will that the industry and consumers will be able to support.
We share your optimism.
Hi, thank you. I'm Joni Clark from the Earth Law Institute, and I'm also a filmmaker. And I'm fascinated with getting the story together that it's your Got Milk campaign, because you've got all the dots there evolving so beautifully. This should be completely captured and developed as soon as possible. And I'm happy to help because that's a very important mission. And EarthX TV, you know, is a natural link to this. So I think it's incredibly important to get that piece together because it markets and explains to the whole world what's really going on here. And it's so important, especially with the tribes, which I'm supporting also. So, not milk.
That's fantastic. Yeah, got carbon? Is that what it's gonna be? Got carbon. All right, any last questions from the audience?
Yeah, actually, I have attended so many conferences and I have, like Daniel said, I was so much resonated with him that there are so many negativities there. So the thing is that when you are going to convince the end user about the CCS, there will be so many end users. But if policymaker directly finance to the company and company will install that for the sustainability, that policy would be better. So that directly company should finance whole project and that company has the knowledge. The company knows, policymaker has the knowledge, and policymaker has the attitude for the sustainability. But end user, all the end user will think about economics. So that was my thing. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's exactly what the 45Q tax credit is meant to do, is meant to provide the sufficient financial incentive for them to be able to invest in these projects. I think we've just all seen that tax credit is not exactly covering what we all anticipated it would, and to some extent, even when it was raised from $50 to $85 in the Inflation Reduction Act, that didn't result in extra margin in the project. That meant that everybody along the value chain wanted their bigger piece of it. And so again, we've got to really think deeply about the policies that are getting these projects going. But in our last couple of minutes here, kind of biggest needs to unlock CCS, or kind of last thoughts from the panelists.
I mean, I think for me, it's just that additional assurance. We're trying to build up, whether it's the voluntary carbon markets, to build up places so that investors can have assurance that the projects are going to exist. And so that you can get that investment, so you can start.
That's right. I think the insurance market in this space is still kind of highly evolving.
The diverse and disadvantaged communities need to be part of the process, not just as jobs or places where these projects can go, but actual equity owners. And I mean the literal definition of equity, be part owners of projects, not this idea of equity and fairness, but be part owners, take part of that risk, but also take part of the giant reward.
Daniel took my answer, so I'm going to quickly go with infrastructure.
And I'll just kind of summarize, but I think a common theme across all of us is, right, we've got to always dig deep and really anchor our projects in and with our communities, and acknowledge that we should be doing our projects not as industrial hubs for the benefit of industry, but community decarbonization solutions, right? And let's co-create those decarbonization solutions with our communities. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
All of you for joining us today on day one of EarthX and the EarthX Congress. We are pleased to be able to present this. And let me just review a little bit of what we got done on day one. We started out, Travel and I, having a conversation and declaring a 1-year ceasefire in the climate war to give us a chance to develop pragmatic solutions that work, to actually help to solve the problem. Then we had a discussion about the different roles that we play, and we discovered, of course, that everybody can play a distinctive role: the capitalist, the activist, the rock star, every individual, and in fact, we can cross categories and be multiples of those as we do it. It's that collaboration that gives us the power to make change. Then we explored the future of energies, the resilience and multiple purposes that can be achieved when we actually see energy forms as an ecosystem themselves, and diversified energy forms with different combinations in different areas, each filling in gaps, providing the human species with what natural systems provide through their diversity, the capacity to survive and excel in many different situations. If we measure what can get us to net zero carbon first, it is paradoxically not moving in one direction toward one or two kinds of energy. It's allowing this ecosystem of energies to emerge. And then we learned about pro-activism. Now that was a revolutionary conversation that we had about pro-activism. There's a lot more underneath that. There's a lot more about how to do pro-activism, and EarthX is going to carry that through in this next year and have discussions, but also put that into practice. We sacrificed some sacred cows in our discussion about future deployment of the clean energy economy. We talked about the need to actually put projects in place and how we can put projects in place in ways that engage the community effectively. Now, this is very challenging because you engage the community in the wrong way with the wrong laws, you get more barriers, but how we can actually engage the community effectively in that. We went into some detail about carbon capture and sequestration, and learned more about it, and identified the ways in which it can participate, and sometimes the perverse incentives that we end up structuring in our laws so that we don't get more of what we want. We just get higher costs along the way. Tomorrow, I think it's going to be an enriching discussion, because our theme tomorrow is the circular economy. The circular economy is in a sense, it's recycling writ large, but it's really more than that. It's shifting from this linear economic model that we've been following to great advantage for many generations, but that has gone beyond its healthy phase to a circular system where the economy is more like nature, is more like a living system, complex, adaptive, continually creating, continually innovating, and cycling resources over and over again. And we're going to learn about the basics of a circular economy, but we're also going to dive into the philosophy and the worldview that emerges when we look at human civilization, not in linear form, birth, death, but as a continuing human enterprise in circular fashion. So thank you to everybody for joining us today. We're going to get into a reception now. I hope you'll join us for dinner tonight. We're going to hear from 4 very distinctive kinds of, we'll hear from the members of Congress today. I believe we've got the CEOs tomorrow night. Thank you for joining us, and have a good evening. We hope to see you at the after party later tonight. With Roger and Trammell, would you like to come up and join us?